What's up, everyone? Justin Melo and Justin Graver back from the Music City Audible channel here to do a Titans 53-man roster projection. Justin, how many quarterbacks you got on the team?
I've got three: Ryan Tannehill, Malik Willis, Will Levis. I don't think Malik has been bad enough for them to consider cutting. I think that would be crazy. A team would add him right away with the developmental upside that he is still showing. He's gotten better. I'm sticking with the three quarterbacks.
Yeah, I think that is going to be how it shakes out here. I don't even know if Will Levis has passed Malik Willis for the QB2 spot yet. So any talk of cutting him, I think, has been put soundly to bed. I also have three quarterbacks. Let's go to the running back position. Here I have Derrick Henry, Tajay Spears, and Julius Chestnut. I don't think the Titans need to keep a fourth back. I do not have them keeping a fourth back. What do you think about this position?
I've got the same three, and I'm surprised because I really thought Jonathan Ward would make the 53, and maybe he still will, but a late injury in the preseason training camp has sort of prevented him from competing for that spot when it really matters, right? As we get down to the nitty-gritty here. They added Josh Patrick recently, who played in Saturday's game against the Vikings, but can't see him making it. I got the same three as you: Derrick Henry, Tajay Spears, Julius Chestnut.
Yeah, I just don't think there's any need to keep a fourth running back because those three guys can do everything you need and just stash somebody on the practice squad if you really need a fourth one. At wide receiver, who do you have and how many? Because I think this is one of the more interesting positions.
I've got six. Not that I'm saying any of this with any sort of conviction because there are so many spots. There's so many guys battling for what's one spot, but I'm going with the six that I've stuck with the majority of the summer. That's DeAndre Hopkins, Treylon Burks, Kyle Phillips, Chris Moore, Nick Westbrook-Akine, and for the sixth and final spot, I'm going with Reggie Roberson Jr., second-year UDFA out of SMU. That's looked really good in practice, hasn't fully translated to the games. The Titans haven't had a lot of success passing the ball in the preseason game, so a lot of guys in the mix here. I really like Kearis Jackson. I like what Mason Kinsey has shown us. I like Trayshawn Harrison. There's so many guys battling for this spot, but I'm going with Reggie Roberson for my sixth and final spot.
I really wanted to go with just five guys here because I didn't feel like anyone had cemented themselves as a standout who deserved that sixth wide receiver spot, and I thought maybe the team would just keep five. But then Kyle Phillips got injured, and we heard word from Paul Kaharski, reported an MCL injury that could knock him out for 4 to 6 weeks. If that's the case, I think they have to keep six receivers because if they want Kyle Phillips on the team eligible to return from IR at any point this year, they can't place him on IR without placing him first on the final 53-man roster. So you know Kyle Phillips is going to make it, and that leaves you with really four receivers if you only keep five because Phillips is not going to be ready for week one. Hell, Treylon Burks might not be ready for week one. If that's the case, you need six receivers on the roster. Maybe you need seven just because if you're without two guys, the first week or two, then you only have five out of those seven available to play. And maybe Kyle Phillips makes the initial 53-man roster and then immediately gets moved to IR. That could be the case too. But so instead of predicting five receivers, I am going to predict six. And my six receivers are obviously DeAndre Hopkins, Treylon Burks, Kyle Phillips, Chris Moore, Nick Westbrook-Akine, and I'm going to go Racey McMath as the sixth guy. He played the fewest snaps of receivers in week 2 of the preseason, aside from Kyle Phillips, who got injured on his second snap. With only 8 snaps on offense, he did play 11 snaps on special teams, so he played more on special teams than he played on offense in that game. I think his role is that guy who's going to be a special teams gunner, and he's going to be your sixth wide receiver. So I think Mason Kinsey has a shot too, especially if they feel like Treylon Burks won't be ready for week 1. Then maybe it's Mason Kinsey also, and you have Racey McMath who can play outside, and you have Mason Kinsey who can play inside in case anything happens during that game, sort of to fill in for Treylon Burks and Kyle Phillips. But I am going to go with 6. I really wanted to go with 5, but I'm going to go with 6.
All right, at tight end, I have 4 guys: Chig Okonkwo, Josh Wiley, Trevon Wesco, and Thomas Adekoya. Do you have 4 as well?
I've got the same 4. Now, where this conversation gets interesting is, do you need to keep 4 when 2 of them have very similar identities, right? That's what you're getting out of Trevon Wesco and Thomas Adekoya. That's the question the Titans might ask themselves. And if they don't keep both of them, that will be why. I feel confident in saying that. But for me, Odakoya has just shown too much as a blocker. This guy's got 10 year in the league potential as an elite blocking tight end. So I'm not releasing him. I'm not exposing him to waivers. Guess what? 31 competing franchises are watching the preseason. They're seeing this guy block his butt off. I don't think you can cut him right now. I'm sticking with the 4 tight ends.
Yeah, me too. I think that's probably how it shakes out. Let's move on to the offensive line. How many are you keeping and who are they?
I'm keeping 9, right? Of course, we know the starting 5. So, of course, I'm keeping Andre Dillard, Peter Skoronski, Aaron Brewer, Daniel Brunskill, and I guess Chris Hubbard as my 5th there as the starting right tackle. I'm keeping Justin Murray. Shirley is a guy that's now competing to start at right tackle. That's my sixth. I would say Corey Levin is my seventh, probably their number one interior reserve lineman. My eighth is Jalen Duncan. They drafted him in the sixth round out of Maryland. I'm not as convinced as I once was, but for now, he is my eighth lineman. Then my ninth and final spot, a lot of guys in contention here. I'm going with second-year UDFA out of Baylor, Xavier Newman Johnson. I thought he was outstanding against the Vikings in the second preseason game. I've seen a lot of people go, Jordan Roos, Andrew Rupsich. There are a couple other guys in the mix here. I just really like what Newman Johnson has showed. I think he's got the most upside of those three players. He is my ninth and final O-lineman here on the roster.
Nice. I'm going to keep 9 as well, but I'm going to do something a little surprising. So first of all, we should mention Nicholas Petit-Frere will not count against the Titans 53-man roster for the first 6 games and the first 7
neither
weeks.
Neither will Dylan Radins.
And neither will Dylan Radins, who's still on PUP right now. So we don't have to worry. Those guys are safe on the roster. They're just not on the 53-man roster. So I got the same starting 5 as you, obviously. Justin Murray, who I think might end up being the starting right tackle. We'll see between him and Chris Hubbard. Corey Levin as your interior backup swing guy. Xavier Newman Johnson also I have on the team. And then I am cutting Jalen Duncan in favor of Andrew Rupsich. And I don't think that means Duncan's career is over by any stretch. He's probably a guy you can get back on the practice squad without too much trouble. He hasn't performed very well in the preseason. He's giving up a lot of pressures and sacks, and also dealing with a minor injury now, so we're not sure how that's going to affect him. I just think Andrew Rupsich, he can play guard and tackle. That kind of versatility is highly valued, so I think that he's going to make the final 53 over Jalen Duncan, despite them spending a 6th-round pick on him this year. All right, let's move over to the defensive side of the ball. That completes the offense. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball and start on the D-line. How many interior defensive linemen do you have them keeping, and who are they?
Well, I'm just going to group them as I'm keeping 5 D linemen. I'm keeping, of course, Jeffrey Simmons, Tier Tart, Dina Coatri, I'm counting in that group 3.
Me too.
I'm still keeping Jaden Peavy as my 4th. I think he's shown enough growth throughout training camp to stick on this 53-man roster. And for the final spot, I don't say it with a ton of conviction, but for now I'm going with Kyle Pico, a guy they just reunited with, a D tackle that they clearly like because they brought him back. Was immediately making plays in practice. I think forced a fumble in his first practice. I think this is a spot they could look to upgrade, maybe on the waiver wire market as other teams make their cut downs. But for now, I'm going with 5. Kyle Pico is my 5th.
Yeah, I've got 5 as well. Obviously, Simmons, Tart, and Danico Autry. And then I've got Naquan Jones over Jaden Peavy and Kyle Pico as well. Jaden Peavy's gotten a lot of camp buzz, but he just hasn't played well in the actual preseason games. So I don't know. I mean, maybe he makes the roster here and Naquan Jones doesn't. Maybe Kyle Pico doesn't. But I'm going to go with these 5 for now. And maybe this will change between now and August 29th when the cutdown day is, roster deadline is. But this is what I'm going with for now. What about outside linebacker / edge rusher? How many you got and who are they?
I've got 5. Once again, I've got Harold Landry. I've got Arden Key, Rashad Weaver. Those 3 are obviously locked in. Then I'm going with Sam Okwanu, and I'm going with Caleb Murphy, the UDFA out of Ferris State's got 3 sacks leading the Titans in the preseason. Those are my 5 outside linebackers.
Yeah, that's exactly who I have. Landry, Key, Okwanu, Weaver, and Murphy. The same 5 as you. So I think we can move on to inside linebacker then. I'll start this time.
I'm going to keep 5 inside linebackers. And if I had only gone with 5 receivers, I think this is where I would have made up that spot and taken 6 inside linebackers. But my 5 inside linebackers, I think it's the same as yours. Azeez Al-Shire, Jack Gibbons, Chance Campbell, Monty Rice, and Luke Gifford. And I'm acknowledging that there's a chance Monty Rice could be cut or could be one of those guys that's put on the 53 and then immediately moved to IR. We don't know what he's dealing with, if it's an injury, if it's a serious one or what, but he hasn't been available for the last couple games or practices. So something's definitely up there. But yes, I am going to just go with 5 inside linebackers.
I'm going with 5. I'm going with Azeez Al-Shire, of course, Jack Gibbons, Monty Rice is my 3rd, Luke Gifford is my 4th, and Chance Campbell is my 5th. So I'm cutting Ben Neiman there, but I don't say that with any sense of conviction either. I really like the way Neiman has played on defense and special teams. I like the way Otis Reese has played, right? And we both don't have him. So they got a lot of decisions to make here at inside linebacker. Some really, really good football players.
Let's move on to the defensive backs. We're going to group in together cornerback and safety because some of these guys play all over the place. Like, what even is Elijah Molden? I guess he's a safety now, but let's go ahead and tell me how many DBs you got and who they are.
I'm going with 10 defensive backs. I've got Christian Fulton, Sean Murphy Bunting, and Roger McCreary at the top 3 corners, of course. I'm going with Caleb Farley, projecting that he's going to be activated off the pup in time. Trey Avery and Eric Garr, a very impressive undrafted free agent that looks great. So that's technically 6 corners. And then I'm going with 4 safeties in this group. I'm going with, of course, Amani Hooker, Kevin Byard, Elijah Molden, who seems to be playing safety on a full-time basis right now, and Mike Brown, a guy that I think looks really good throughout the preseason. I think is going to claim one of those backup safety roles, especially since they cut AJ Moore. So 10 DBs in total, but a lot of competition here. I didn't mention Armani Marsh and Anthony Kendall, who I think looks really good as well. So lots of competition here.
Yes, I actually have Anthony Kendall here, and I don't have Mike Brown. So my 10 DBs are, of course, the same starters: Christian Fulton, Roger McCreary, Sean Murphy-Bunting, Kevin Byard, Amani Hooker. Got Elijah Molden as your top safety backup, Trey Avery as your top corner backup, Eric Garor, or Garor, whatever. We're going to learn how to say Eric G's name at some point this preseason, because he's making the roster, whether it's a nickel corner, safety depth, outside corner, or just as your punt returner. I think he's done enough to earn a roster spot. And then I have Anthony Kendall and Tyreek Jones rounding out the group here, just because these guys have played really well in the preseason, and maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe the coaching staff is going to care more about what they see at practice and in the meeting rooms, and they have every right to do so. But I've been impressed with these guys, and so for my 53-man roster, I wanted to put them on it. Okay, Justin, let's wrap this thing up with our 3 designated special teams players. I assume we have the same long snapper, Morgan Cox, the same punter, Ryan Stonehouse, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you may have noticed an outfit change for us, because we recorded this 53-man roster projection before the Titans waived Trey Wolff and Caleb Shudak. So we both had Trey Wolff as the guy, but the Titans have since waived both kickers that were in the competition and signed Michael Badgley. So I'm going to put Michael Badgley here as my kicker, but honestly, I wouldn't blame you if you went with some random kicker that's on another team's roster or a free agent veteran that's out there, because Michael Badgley doesn't end up being the kicker. Like, they could still turn this position, but for now, I am going to go with Michael Badgley as my kicker.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to take a shot in the dark, and I'm going to be really bold here. I'm going to go with Nick Folk, veteran kicker of the New England Patriots. I wouldn't put it past Bill Belichick to keep 2 kickers on his roster. That seems like a Belichickian thing to do. But the Patriots drafted a kicker in the 2023 draft. They drafted Chad Ryland, I believe, out of Maryland. Anytime a team drafts a kicker, very rare that guy gets cut and doesn't even get an opportunity. Right? So if the Patriots are ready to move on from Nick Folk, which all signs, indicate they are, they drafted another kicker. They drafted his replacement. Then I think Nick Folk will be a Tennessee Titan, kicks for the Titans in week 1, not Michael Badgley, who they did sign on Tuesday, as you said. Badgley was with the team previously in 2021. I think he was only there for 1 game. Didn't inspire a ton of confidence, because I think he missed an extra point and they kicked him the next day. Oh, sorry, they kicked him. They did not pull an Urban Meyer. They cut him the next day. I will say, though, I will pat myself on the back here, right? Because if you listen to the podcast on Monday, I predicted Michael Badgley. I said maybe they'll sign Michael Badgley, who was just released by the Washington Commanders. So you're going to go with Badgley. I was going to go with him until you gave me an out, and why not take a shot in the dark? If I get this right and I predict someone that was on another roster at the time we're recording this, I think that would be pretty impressive. So I'm going with Nick Folk. If he's free, Titans will be the first phone call.
Yeah, no kidding. So let's see who has the more accurate roster projection come next Tuesday, the 29th, when these final cuts are due. I think it's probably going to be you, because I do think I took a few more chances here, adding guys like Anthony Kendall, Tyreek Jones to my final roster, Xavier Newman-Johnson and Andrew Rupsich, cutting Jalen Duncan. I feel like I'm out on a limb with some of those, so I think you probably will end up being more accurate. But the wild card here is, what if they sign or trade for some other offensive tackle or some other wide receiver? The New York Giants have a ton of guys that they could end up cutting somebody, and the Titans could go after them. Zach at F-Words Pod tweeted that out on Monday about the Giants wide receiver room. The Cardinals have an offensive tackle, Josh Jones, who is not expected to be a starter, but according to people who cover that team, he's a starting caliber quality guy. He's in the final year of his rookie deal. Maybe the Cardinals look to move him so they can get some sort of asset back before he hits free agency at the end of this season. I'm just saying that there are definitely wild cards that could be played here, and that would throw both of our roster projections out. But it's not like either one of us is expecting to go 53 for 53 anyway. So we'll see. And maybe they keep Hassan Haskins. We both have Hassan Haskins off our rosters. There's definitely places we could go wrong. I'm hoping I'll be the more accurate one, but I definitely have some bold predictions here. So I think you'll probably end up taking that crown.
Well, if I do, I'm still gonna brag about it. I'm not gonna be forgiving to you because you took a few more chances. I'll brag about it for the next year until we got to do another 53-man roster projection.
Yeah, there you go. That'll be your bragging rights. All right, that'll do it for this 53-man roster projection. Make sure that you are subscribed to the Music City Audible channel. We have a preseason Week 3 preview, Titans versus Patriots, coming very soon with the biggest questions that still need to be answered about this Titans team before the regular season. So stick around for that. We'll be back then. Until then, y'all stay safe out there and tighten up.